everybody. My name is Joya. As Ashley said, I've been a television anchor here in New York for about 15 years. I'm currently on New York 1. That's one of the avatars that I inhabit anyway. I'd say about 5 years ago, I got to a point in my career where I was like, is this it? I had given up so much as a woman, as a South Asian woman, to get to where I was in my career, and I frankly just feel like I was doing the most that I could with my skill set. So that was when I took a group of 5 guys to India and shot my first social justice documentary. So that brings me to avatar number 2, which is documentary filmmaker. And then the third avatar that I inhabit is what Ashley was speaking to, which is the co-founder of Lady Drinks, which really works to support women entrepreneurs. In fact, one of my events is going on tonight as I'm speaking here, and the Mayor's Office of Small Business Services is presenting on women-owned and minority-owned businesses and the offerings that the Mayor's Office has for that sector of the economy. But you know, I tell you about all these avatars on pretext because every day, whether it be from any of these sectors, someone is asking me, please put me on New York 1. Please get me press. Please connect me to someone who's going to get me press. And so I thought it would behoove me, there's some more seats up here, folks, if you want to take a seat. I thought it would behoove me to maybe talk about the ways that you can better connect with someone like myself or somebody else. So that brings me to my first point, which is I'm a business reporter. I do business reports every hour from the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. So it is so important when you're pitching me, especially for television, is that you know your audience and you tailor it to me. I'm going to give you an example of a gentleman last week. He had a great story idea. He's developed an app which a doctor, if you aren't Spanish speaking, could download on your phone, and if you had a Spanish speaking patient, you could have a conversation with them in real time because it's translating in real time. Right. That's fantastic, right? I'm a business reporter. He did not, at the very top of it, tell me how much do hospitals lose every year when they can't actually interact with a Spanish-speaking patient. And you know what? That's actually a legitimate statistic because the Spanish demographic is the fastest growing in New York City, let alone the country. But he didn't top it with that. So that would be my first piece of advice. If you're sending it to a business reporter, give me the business angle. If you're writing automotive news, give me the automotive topper. If you're going to be writing to a health magazine, tell me why I should care as a health reporter. Know who you're talking to. I'll tell you one guy who got it right, and he actually gave me some tips tonight that I'm going to be sharing with you, is a guy by the name of Craig Bader of Stanton TV. And what he does is, let's say Ford is rolling out a brand new car. He would package up not only the videotape of the new car, but he would have a one-pager that came with it. He would send it to me when I'd get to work at 3:30 in the morning, and he'd be sitting there waiting for me because he knew I work in television. I need a visual medium. And I need 2 lines about why I should care. Why would my audience care that's waking up at 6 in the morning about the new Ford car? He got it right, and he knew exactly who to get it to. He knew that I needed stories for local audiences and morning TV. So that just buttresses my first piece of advice, which is to know your audience and tailor your pitch. The second one is, where's your audience getting your info? Anybody that's delving into marketing knows now that there are 3 major sectors of folks, right? There's the millennials, which are the 20 and 30-something crowds. There's the Gen Xers, which are basically the 30 and 40-something crowds. And then, of course, there is the baby boomer generation, which now we're getting into the 40s and 50s. And where do these folks get their information? Well, the millennials pretty much are devoted to their smartphones. You go to any restaurant, anywhere, anytime, you know where their eyes are glued to, and it's not on you. You know, and then if you look at I would be part of the Gen Xers. I would say that my generation pretty much gets everything from the web. That's pretty much where I get most of my information. But if you are catering to the baby boomer generation, they're still reading newspapers, they're still watching television, they're still watching Tom Brokaw at 6 p.m. They're not watching Peter Jennings, obviously, because he's no longer, but I'm just saying they're still tuning into radio and getting their stuff from some of the traditional media sources. And so I'll give you an example of why it's important to know that. I was bidding to do a project with an organization that made films about cleft palate surgeries in India. And he was bringing me on board for his next project, and we were talking about marketing and strategy, about how to get this out once it's out the door. And he's like, do you know the people who have money? It's the baby boomer generation, and they aren't on the web. So you know what I did to raise money? I sent everybody a coffee table book of all the photographs I took from my last project in India. And that's when the checks started to roll in. These folks aren't on the web. Although if you look at the statistics now for Facebook, yes, there's much more of the baby boomer generation starting to get on the web and get on Facebook, but still the majority where they get their information is vastly different. So know your audience and know who you're targeting to. It's so important when you're going after that. And then the third thing is just remember that news is a business. Just like you are a business and you're minding a bottom line, there's a bean counter in every single business, as is news. So every inch on a web page, every single second of airtime, every single era of radio time, those are worth ad dollars. So if there is a story worth telling that's going to drive traffic and ad dollars to their site, to their television programming, to their radio programming, that's gold. There is a story that's playing on Taxi TV right now about the quilting queen. Has anybody seen this? The quilting queen made NBC nightly news. I saw this about 3 times on Taxi TV, and I was like, all right, I'm just going to turn up the volume and hear what's going on here, because I don't know why I'm being subjected to this. Nothing gets less sexy than quilting, but you know what? This woman has figured out a way to make quilting so easy and so efficient that you can build a quilt in one day. She has also had the business acumen to do a series of YouTube videos. She has 120,000 subscribers. She's already, let me see if I got the statistics right, she's got about 20 million people have already visited all of her YouTube videos, and she employs 85 people. That is why NBC Nightly News picked her up and did a whole segment of some woman in Hamilton, Missouri, who has people coming from all over the country, not only to quilt, but to listen to her speak. She's like the Midwestern Oprah. So, you know what I mean? Like she's got a hook. And the way, and I'm going to talk about this in the social media section because I'm just addressing television now. But when you get to the social media section, people are now looking for you. You don't necessarily have to go pitching to them anymore, but it's all about creating content. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. Advertise, advertise, advertise. I'm going to tell you that money just doesn't talk, it swears. And media is going to be very kind to those who are spending their ad dollars. Now, the fourth avatar that I didn't tell you that I inhabit is that I have a Saturday morning show, and it's totally entertainment focused, and I'm South Asian, so it caters to the first and second generation Indian who lives in this country and wants to get their Bollywood fix on. So I do it all in English, but it really caters to that audience. But I'll tell you something. People are always pitching me to want to be on that show. Hey, I did a music video, can I be on your show? Hey, I'm a great singer, can I be on your show? You know what? It's going to get you on that show is if you're Mass Mutual and you're about to hold a financial planning workshop and you just spent 20 grand on an ad spot. Because that's what, the next thing I know, I'm talking about how they're holding a financial thing, and I'm like, why am I reading this? But you know what? Those ad dollars speak, and TV is expensive. So, you know, there's some purchase in relaying that bit of information to you, as much as I know advertising can be expensive. But you know what? There's other ways to advertise. You know, you let your imagination run free. Put your logo on a pen, put it on a clock, put it on a calendar, put it on, you know, a thumb drive and use it as a giveaway at an event. That's a great way to advertise. Now every single event has a step and repeat. Those are $200 to make. Get a bunch of girls in front of them and take a picture. You know, everybody loves pictures nowadays. What a great way to advertise your business, no matter what you're in, no matter what vertical you're actually functioning in. And then co-sponsor events. You know, I'm going to talk about this more a little bit later on, but sponsor the Little League team in your town, or, you know, partner up with a nonprofit to get your name splattered all over whatever event they're doing, because it just builds brand awareness. So the one thing that I want to talk about is I'm a huge fan of this. I do this every month, but hosting events, you just can't beat that. And I'm going to share a story of a way that a business, again, a not very sexy one, was able to build their branding because of an alliance that they made. So Blue Rock Energy, and I defer to my friend Chris Desi, who gave me this example, so I can't really lay claim to it, but Blue Rock Energy is an energy supplier. You know, they provide energy upstate to businesses as well as residential customers. And they were like, how can we get our name out there? We do electricity. They allied with the Buffalo Bills. They allied with the Buffalo Bills and sponsored the home opener with the New England Patriots. That meant they were featured during the pre-show, during the show, after the show. They had a fan energy meter on a billboard, like during the game, so people could log on and pick their favorite player of the game, and they won prizes. They had a vendor tent at training camp. And so people were able to see Blue Rock Energy everywhere they looked. But what's better than allying with hometown pride, the Buffalo Bills, and football? So that's just one way to, you know, hosting events, give speeches. I mean, I'm doing nothing better than, you know, building my brand, which, as I told you, I have this Lady Drinks brand by going out and constantly speaking to people and telling people about what I'm doing. But I'm also building a brand. So if you've got the cojones to do it, Get out there and do public speaking. There's always folks like WIX and others who are looking for people to speak on a specific topic. The last thing I'm going to say is that when you are pitching to the press, if you get to that point where someone's like, yeah, okay, let's see what you got. Put together a one-pager because I want to see what you've got. Make sure that you are speaking in the most clearest of language, like you're explaining it to your mother or your 8-year-old nephew. You know, don't get bogged down in a lot of the jargon. Again, I refer back to the medical translating thing. It's a really great story, but if you're going to get bogged down in the tech apps and how you built it, that's not going to get my attention. I want to know how it's going to help me in real time now as I'm treating a patient. Make sure that, you know, you're being concise and you're compelling. Like, in that subject line, you've maybe got, what, 60 characters to spare? Make it sexy, make it compelling. Give me the reason why I should put you on nightly news, or why I should put you on New York One, why I should put you on New York One Noticias, which is where I ultimately sent this fellow who had the Spanish application app. But, you know, to me, I think it's so important to also follow up. Follow up, but be pleasant. Everybody's busy. Be persistent, but pleasantly, because you don't know how many times a day we're getting pitched from so many different people. But I really give it up. I give it up to those people that come back to me the 3rd or 4th time and are like, hey, you know, I sent that thing to you. Do you think you got a chance to look at it? I appreciate that, because you know what? I'm busy. And it's tough to answer every email. I've hit that tipping point. All right, let's talk about social media now, because this, of course, has changed the way that we communicate. And this is especially important for women, because women come to me and they say, I don't really want to brag about my business, or I don't want to really brag about what I do. But if you're telling your story, that's not quite bragging, is it? I had a woman who's a musician who came up to me at an event I spoke to on Tuesday, and she's like, you know, I'm doing an album, and I'm just wondering, like, how would I disseminate the social media around that? I'm like, get on your webcam and talk about what inspired you to do this album. Did your boyfriend break up with you and that's why you decided to do it? Did you decide that you know, maybe you have a relationship with a relative that inspired you to do it? Get on that webcam and tweet it out. Do an Instagram video, tweet a Vine. Just do something every single day so that when that album does come out, we're vested. We've been with you through the entire journey as you've been putting this together. We've been there for the ups, we've been there for the downs, but tell a story. If you don't want to do it on video, do it in your Facebook post, do it in your Google Plus post. You know, but just make sure you're out there telling a story, because that is the most unique thing you bring to the table. Also, another thing that we don't think about, but I just got done saying don't use a bunch of jargon, but search engine optimization. The more content that you have out there about your business or about whatever it is that you're doing, that means that you come up higher in a Google search, right? That means that you punch in widget maker. Who's the top widget maker? I don't know. I'm going to go punch it into Google and see what comes up. You know what? The more content that you have out there, the more it's going to build your brand. So get your SEOs up by doing video, by doing photos, by doing all kinds of blogging. I'm going to talk about that in a second as well. All right, being everywhere, that's a tough one because I know how much of a time suck that is, but I want to talk about the purchase of why you want to be on LinkedIn. We were just talking about this. You want to create a business page on LinkedIn, right? Because you want to create a destination where you can actually post about the business as opposed to your own personal self, right? But LinkedIn has really changed. If you track that company and see how at a clip at which they're adding subscribers, the way that people get jobs and the way that people are recruited and found for things has changed drastically. People are looking for you. You don't necessarily have to go to them, but that hinges on how strong is that LinkedIn profile of yours. How much are you talking exactly about what you or your company does? The other secret I want to tell you is join groups on LinkedIn. Okay, so you're a widget maker, you just joined the National Widget Group. Guess what? Now you don't actually have to be connected to a person to be able to talk to them. You know how that whole thing comes up that says, sorry, you're not connected to this person, you can't actually send them an in-mail? If you're part of a group, now you can. So that's one of the, you know, if you're part of a business, you want to join a group on LinkedIn, that's one of the secrets that I like to share about that. Google Plus, I gotta tell you, I didn't really know why I needed to be on Google Plus until I took a social media boot camp, because I'm like, do I really need to mind one more social media platform in my already crammed day? But here's what I want to tell you about Google Plus. Because it's a Google product, again, going back to the SEOs, if you post an event on there, you post your company on there, you post a video on there, it's going to come up higher on a search because Google loves itself. So that's important to know. So guess what? I'm now posting all of my events on Google+. You punch in women's networking event, you can damn well better believe that my event's going to come up a little bit higher now because I'm posting about it constantly. The other little secret I want to tell you about Google+ is that it is a little bit more of a tech-savvy and a little bit more of an intellectual crowd. So if I go back to my first point about knowing your audience and knowing who you want to target, that's something to think about when you're posting away on Google+, whether it be an event or about your business. And the last thing I want to say, similar to what I said about LinkedIn, create a page for your business. Create a page for your business and make sure that is the biggest ambassador of like what it is that represents you. Facebook. Facebook's a tough one because everybody's on Facebook, right? Your mom, your dad, your grandmother, like, you know, they're proud of you, but they don't necessarily maybe want to buy a widget from you. So the one thing I would say about Facebook ads is that they're $5 or $10 or whatever, but buy a Facebook ad and try out a couple of different things and see what comes up for you. That's a purchase that's, you know, it's low stakes, but do it and see what happens for your business. Pinterest. This one also eluded me for a long time until I investigated a little bit further, especially if you're in a visual medium. You want to make sure that you've got as many pictures, good photos of what it is that you're doing on Pinterest. Because you know what? Somebody's going to punch in something ancillary like hot news anchor, and next thing you know, they've somehow come up on your Pinterest feed, and they're now like searching what you're doing. And a lot of those actually end up in e-commerce transactions. So getting your stuff on Pinterest is usually a great thing. Great photos, whatever you can get up there, and make sure you put a lot of copy on there too. That's another thing when I say about Google+. You know, a lot of places, Twitter doesn't allow you to put a lot of copy in there because you're limited amount of characters, but Google+ and Pinterest allows you to put in a lot of copy to go with that photo. So make sure you've got a lot of copy to describe what it is that people are looking at. Number five, I don't have it up here, but I want to tell you about number 5. Helpareporter.com. Anybody heard of this site? Yeah. Helpareporter.com quenches the thirst of a lot of people who come to me and they say they just want to be featured in the press. Help a Reporter is people like me who are doing a story on African Americans in business, female only. How am I going to find someone in a pinch? Because usually my deadline was yesterday. So helpareporter.com is used by major media outlets looking for people that they can profile and put in their news stories. Because most news stories start with Joe Schmo, who lives in Hamilton, Montana, you know, has a small business, and the recession hit him, and he's not doing so well. And then they get into the heart of the story, right? But they needed that Joe guy to profile. So it's a great place to go and subscribe to that list, because you might have a story idea that maybe they're just looking for a story idea, and you might be able to pitch to them. So that's always a good idea to check that website out. All right, so of course everyone says, that's great, Joya, you've just given me a boatload of work to do. How in the world am I going to have the time to do all of this? Well, there are tools now that you can use to help you to get your social media out about your business or your interest. Hootsuite is something that I use regularly. I schedule all my posts for the day, and then I'm done. I'm out the door. Or I'll schedule them for the whole week, but it looks as if I'm sitting at my computer posting all day long. But another point that I want to make, you know, I'm going to make this a little later on down the pike here, but I might as well just talk about it now. I actually don't have it up here, which is, you know, people don't want you to always be taking. They want to see that you're giving to them as well. And one of the ways to give to them is to share some thought leadership in the space in which you function. So I'll go back to my widget example. If you're the best widget maker out there, tell me why. Or what is it that other widget makers are doing that I could benefit from learning about? So if you're looking for some of that material to be sent your way, a site that's really good to check up is called Feedly, F-E-E-D-L-Y. Feedly, you punch in whatever subject matter you want, and it'll constantly send you a stream of related articles in the vertical in which you function. Now, going back to the tools, now why I'm talking about this now is because you don't have time to sit there and send out a million articles all day long. So there's another tool called Buffer.com. Again, allows you to schedule all of this stuff so that it can be sent out at intermittent times throughout your network, throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month. And you're not married to your computer all day. It's a good way to manage your time. You spend an hour, you're done. Blogging, you know, I mean, I'm not telling you something you don't already know, but a lot of folks see a lot of purchase in blogging. They get a lot of benefits out of that. You've positioned yourself as a leader. You position yourself as a thought leader in a particular space. And that is the angle that you take when you're blogging. Whether you're doing it on video, whether you're doing it on words, it's a great way to garner a following. And then the final thing I want to say is ask questions. Ask questions of your customers, ask questions of your clients. Either ask them on social media or ask them when they're in front of you. Where are you getting your information? How are you getting your information? What would you like to see change about this business? What do you already like about this business? Get that real-time feedback loop. A lot of people are afraid to ask those questions, but I think it's so important, because a customer you already have is easier to keep than one that you don't have. And they're going to be your biggest ambassadors when they walk out your door and tell other people about the service that they received or the business that you're providing. And as I said, at the very end there, give, give, give. Like, people want to see that you're fostering a relationship with them. I mean, as people are fostering a relationship with me, yeah, okay, I get it. You want me to do a story about you, but how did we foster a relationship before we got to that point? How did I learn about what it is that you're doing so I can be interested? Because guess what? Now I'm going to be the one that's going to go turn around and talk to the executive producer and say, hey, you got to do this story. It's really great. But, you know, the person behind it is really great. And so I really encourage you to, when you're, hey, you know, women are the biggest supporters of sharing deals. So women are more inclined, if they see a deal somewhere else, to pass it along to someone else. It's fostering a relationship. You can do that with a reporter. Hey, can I take you out to lunch? Can I have 15 minutes of your time? We can go out for coffee. I want to tell you what I'm doing. So those are my 2 cents as far as social media and television are concerned. I apologize to the gentlemen who are just coming in the back. You're just hearing the tail end of it. But I open it up now to questions. I want to hear what you have to say and what questions you might have. Schedule every hour of my day, and that's not just the work stuff. I mean the fun stuff. I make sure that every hour of my day is spoken for, but it also might mean an hour for me to just go to yoga and take it easy. Or it's an hour to just go shopping, because I don't really do that anymore. You know, I just online shop and I'm done. So I think it's important for a time management perspective for me to really have that regimen. I sit down on Sunday and I plan out my week, and I plan out the fun, and I plan out the business, and I plan out the hours, especially as I'm at work at 2:30, 3:30 in the morning, when I'm gonna nap, you know, because that's important too, or I won't get through my day. You're building a following on Facebook, or you're building a following where you are, but you need to talk about it. And this is something, and I'm sorry, this is just for women, but like, we are so bad at talking about our accomplishments. It's an accomplishment that you've gotten so many columns written. But it's important to be able to get out there and say, hey, guess what, I was published in this. This is the topic I was talking about. Take a look, why don't you read it? And push it out there, and push it out there. I think it's important to talk about it. Okay. You know, and men do it all the time. Men have been doing it since time immemorial. But we are conditioned to not do that, and I suggest you talk about it.
Thank you.
And there's so many, and women are, if you look at the statistics, more women are on social media than ever. As I said, they're more prone to sharing deals, they're more prone to sharing ideas, nurturing each other, supporting each other. Why wouldn't you do that now? Now's your time. There's a woman by the name of Nelly Yusupova who holds every single month a social media boot camp. I'm hosting her actually in May. But if you want to just get a breakdown of the ways that you can maximize your presence on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Instagram, she breaks it down throughout the entire day, and I highly recommend taking her boot camp, because her name is Nelly Yusupova, and the name of her company is Web Girls, but it's spelled kind of tricky. It's WEBGRRLS. But you know, if you're wearing that marketing hat, and you're doing all the things for your small business, I know how that can be difficult, but a class like that can be really wonderful. And just getting a few tricks up your sleeve, including what I just talked about with Buffer and Feedly and Hootsuite, you know, those are great tools for someone who's busy and you're wearing a lot of hats, so you don't have time to sit there and tweet all day. But these are tools that allow you to be able to maximize your day. Some other tools?
If you don't mind, one more from Wayne.
Hey, Joya.
Oh, sure.
Hi, I'm Wayne Rader with the Little Inland Merchants Association and Lisa Project, the Street Art.
And you shared some of that art. It's beautiful.
I do, thank you. A question I have, if you're trying to change the perception of a community, a business community that already exists, Little Italy, for example, as I mentioned to you, some of the perceptions that are out there, we want to kind of flip the script on that. What would be 1 or 2 outlets to reach out to kind of get that awareness out there and make people understand that Little Italy, for example, is making some bold...
But why do you need to wait for an outlet to cover it? Why don't you start doing some videos now saying exactly what you just said?
What if we've already started doing that and done that? Well, how would you suggest? Sometimes it's more than YouTube. Sometimes it's more than Instagram, Twitter, or a great website. Sometimes you need to be a little more aggressive. All that being said, is there something that you could recommend to kind of go to?
So I would recommend getting some beautiful photos taken, which it seems like you already have, of the murals, doing a one-pager and sending a bunch of those photos to as many news outlets as you can find. But be clear about what audience you want to reach. Like, what is your end goal when you do try to change your perception? Is it to bring more revenue? Is it to bring more tourist traffic? I think you already have a lot of that.
Well, more visitors, Upper West Side, Upper East Side, Connecticut, New Jersey, more visitors as opposed to tourists. Local New Yorkers coming back into Little Italy as opposed to like you said, we have plenty of tourism when we don't have that local support for New Yorkers, which is very important to the business community as well. For Little Italy.
Well, what if you did a giveaway? You know, or what if you people, I've done a ton of events, people love experiences. So what if you teamed up with a restaurant that's most popular down in Little Italy, and you gave away a tour and a dinner? And you did a giveaway on all of your social media platforms to start bringing people down there. Because those people, again, are going to be your biggest ambassadors. Have you gone back to any of those folks and said, hey, do you know somebody else that I might be able to send this to?
I have, and everybody comes back to me saying, hey, listen, we need the New York Times, we need a New York One, we need a CNN, etc. And it's just so hard to try to get that
Get past the gatekeepers.
Because what we're doing is something special. It really is special, and it really is epic, and it's a spectacle.
Well, I tell you what, this is my standard answer to a lot of people who pitch me each day. I want to see a compelling press release with pictures, and I will forward it to the appropriate reporter. But I mean, do you have that? You know,
Yes.
with that's concise, compelling, short, and why should I care? But tailored to the arts reporter and not to anybody else. But if there's a business angle, what's the business angle? I'd like to know that.
The business angle regarding to the art.
I mean, I'm a business reporter. If I'm going to do a story on this, why should I care?
Well, Little Italy, why you should care is that Little Italy is trying to have a cultural outreach that's more than just the tourist restaurant, buy souvenirs kind of dynamic. We're trying to give back to the community by creating these murals, these big art events, and these,
Is it bringing revenue back to the city?
Yeah, it is, and we've worked with our District 1 council member Margaret Chin. People do support us, but it just seems like for Little Italy, people kind of give a little bit of a brush off, like they're not taking us serious, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I guess I'm still wondering why I should care. You know what I mean? For someone's bottom line, I live on the Upper West Side. Why should I, the next time I have folks visiting me in town, why should I bring them down to Little Italy? Why shouldn't I bring them to my favorite restaurant in, I don't know, Soho?
Because when you walk down the street in Soho, for example, or if you walk down the street, well, Soho just changed because I just put a piece of art up in Soho. But on the Upper West Side...
Okay, are you talking about that?
Absolutely, I'm talking about
Who are you talking about it to?
I'm talking a press release in conjunction with the Volta Art Fair, with the Scope Art Fair, in conjunction with the business owner,
But what about the publications that cater to business owners only in Soho? What about doing a synergistic thing where you're partnering up with another business to do a giveaway, and then you publish that in the local rag? Like the Tribeca Citizens, the big thing that a lot of business owners read down in Tribeca. Is there a similar one in Soho? Is there a similar one in Little Italy?
So the small press publications start there, and then through the small press publications, we can probably get some attention from the larger press.
Well, people are constantly scouring for stuff. You know what I mean? Like if it's coming up, and as I said, if you get the searches up, like people are scouring for stories. You get it up there. I want to see media. I want to see video. I want to see as much as I can to say why should I care about that.
Let me cite an example though. When we first started the art project, there was a negative story that occurred in the New York Post. We got a ton of press when it was a negative story for obvious reasons. I mean, it's
also the Post.
Right. But again, though, when we try to position the positive side of it and talk about the good things that we're doing and how we're giving back to the community, covering up graffiti, covering up vandalism, beautifying.
Look, press is press. When people are talking about you, that's a good thing. Don't ever knock that.
Well, right.
When they're not talking about you is when you have a problem.
Fair enough. So I don't want to take up the time in case somebody else has a final question, but so your advice would be then to just keep on keeping on?
I would get everybody who's listening, if it's not the New York Times, anybody who's listening, to publish something about you. And there are so many different outlets that you could cater to, starting with Soho.
Thank you very much.
Well, look, you don't want to get that far. You can hire somebody for $200 a month to be able to be smart about tweeting and doing the social media for you. But it's like the tree falls in the woods. If nobody was there to hear it, then did the tree really fall? So yes, I think that marketing is so important, because how is somebody going to know that you are the best holistic practitioner in the area in which you practice? Do you know what I mean? Like, how am I going to even know that you exist?
It's taken a long time for me to actually wake up to that reality, but it's almost, how many awards can I win?
Yes.
To actually,
it is almost like another full-time job, and people do this for a living, and it's a commitment. But I mean, as a small business owner, your resources are limited, so that's why I was presenting so many different ways to advertise. Put your logo or put your business on a stress ball and hand them out at a next event that you're at, or put it on a pen, or put it on a calendar, or put it on a step or repeat at another women's event. Like, get people talking about you. As I said, if they're not talking about you, that's where your problem lies.
And then consistent, persistent.
Consistent percent, but you know, that's what these tools that I'm talking about, that Hootsuite and Buffer and Feedly allow you and afford you the ability to do that. You don't have to be tied to your desk all day, but I think consistency is key. Going back to what I said, if it takes 7 times for someone to hear you because they didn't hear you the first 6 times, well, then there's your point for being persistent and consistent.
Right. Thank you.